Could the world really run out of food? Emerging nations' growing appetites, droughts, climate change, poor harvests, biofuel production are emptying the world's pantry, sending food prices soaring. As if a bear market, credit crunch, energy crisis, climate change, global warming, recession, and city financing emergencies were not enough for 1 year. Scientists and experts now say the world is now facing down the barrel of the worst catastrophe of all: famine. Not enough to eat. The very idea that the modern world could run out of food seems ludicrous and ridiculous. But that is the flip side, or cause, of the tremendous recent increase in the cost of raw wheat, corn, rice, oats, soybeans, and other foodstuffs. Food prices are not escalating because speculators have run them up for sport and profit, but because accelerating demand in developing nations, biofuel production, and poor harvests and drought in some areas have made basic foodstuffs truly scarce. In energy circles, people who warn about the beginning of the end of cheap fossil fuels talk about peak oil as a point we have dangerously and expensively crossed. And now you can add peak wheat to your political and investment lexicon or understanding. And it's going to get worse. Food fighting. One can always move closer to work or school to cut down on gasoline. But be forced to eat less bread or steak or hamburgers? That's bad. Wheat futures prices have tripled since 2004. Corn prices have almost tripled since 2005. And soybeans have tripled since 2006. Meanwhile, crude oil is up nearly 60% in the past 3 years. That's bad enough, which makes it seem almost bearable in comparison. U.S. stock prices have barely gone up 10% or advanced 10% since 2005, underscoring the diminishment of our buying power. Already, many Americans can't afford to eat right. This is no joke already in Asia. Rice prices surged to a 20-year high this week, more than $18 per 100 pounds, as countries that have the most are keeping it for their own people. Vietnam, India, and Egypt have restricted exports to keep local markets stocked. Philippine and Indonesian officials are warning of civil unrest if the flow of rice does not increase. Yes, people do have to eat. Russia, Ukraine, and other countries in recent weeks have restricted wheat exports as well, putting big tariffs to make sure shelves are stocked in their homelands amid soaring prices. A major Russian grains company chief told Reuters news agency that his country is in a condition that has never ever happened before. Higher prices are not meeting any resistance from very desperate buyers. Most unusual about this phenomenon is that until now, food crises in world history were regional concerns that arose from crop failures or drought, war, or other problems, localized. But now, once global trade of grains got going in the 19th century in a major way, Food shortages in one country were made up by imports from other countries. What's happening now, though, is a lack of supply everywhere at once. Too many people wanting too many things. Overpopulation is still true. Culprits abound, but chief among them is urbanization. More and more cities becoming bigger and bigger. More and more people, which has cut the amount of acreage devoted to farming. The United Nations reports that the total area devoted to crops worldwide had risen by 0.3% annually since 1961 to 3.8 billion acres through the latest survey. But the growth has stalled to 0.1% annually in the past decade. Meanwhile, the world's population continues to soar. Those numbers are not adding up. No. Unlike energy, you can't drill deeper in the ocean or under Arctic tundra for more food. Also, surging income growth among emerging middle classes in China and India, Southeast Asia, and South America has boosted demand for meat protein, and feed for new Asian cattle ranches and pig farms is putting very intense pressure on the world's corn supply. While at the same time, more corn is going for biofuel, especially in the United States. No, we need that for our food supply. Anyway, of course, the weather plays a big role too. A terrible drought in the breadbasket of Australia over the past 2 years has combined with bad harvests in Argentina and Brazil, among other countries, to create some of today's shortfall. Climate change is working at it too. Empty global cupboards. Shortages are very real. The Financial Times reports that rice stocks have fallen this year to about 70 million tons, the lowest level in 25 years, and less than half the total held in global inventories in 2000. Wheat inventories, called carryovers in the trade, are at 30-year lows, even though world wheat production was actually up 1% last year. In the past year, reports show wheat inventories in the European Union have plunged to 1 million tons from 14 million tons. A leading Canadian fertilizer executive told Analysis recently that according to his company's calculations, global grain reserves are precarious at best, at just 1.7 months of consumption, down from 3.5 months of reserves as recently as 2000. In other words, ever since the year 2000, it's been getting worse. Now, the really bad news is that we might actually have been lucky in the past few years, as global warming has lengthened growing seasons in the American plains, sometimes called the Saudi Arabia of corn. The U.S. Midwest has enjoyed 17 straight years without significant crop failure. If this fortunate run ends soon, or if anything happens in the weather, or drought, or any other thing, we'll likely face a worldwide crisis. We already are facing a worldwide crisis. Some researchers, including some climatologists, believe it could happen this year, as La Nina conditions are emerging at a time when the Midwest has become vulnerable due to a drought creeping up from the south. And food prices are already going up in America. And there's more to come.